Hey guys, welcome back to We Met at Acme. I am so excited to be here with Colton Underwood. Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. First of all, before we even get into it, your skincare, your skin is
Oh,
amazing. Like,
thank
what
you.
is the routine?
Happiness. Oh, it's so cheesy. I don't know. I feel like being in LA, my
Yeah.
skin's been much better when
Yeah.
I get sunshine
No, it's
on it.
really good.
So
It's funny. I was just talking to my husband because he like is like one of the CVS skincare guys,
got it. Got it.
And I was like, we need to transition you because he's like, my skin's breaking out. Like, and I'm like, yeah, well, you use like a 4-in-1 shampoo,
Uh,
conditioner, face wash,
oh,
body wash.
yikes.
Yeah.
Oh, I learned
So
for
bad.
even I knew that was probably one of the first things
Right.
I should have been like, yeah, you're totally gay. I told my parents, I was like, I need shampoo, conditioner, and body wash all to be separate.
Uh-huh. They
Um,
the signs are there. I love it. Okay, so before we get into it, what is your favorite romantic gesture?
ooh. First, are we talking like love languages here? Because
Kind of.
okay,
More for like someone to do for you than you to
yeah.
do for someone.
Um, I'm definitely an acts of service. I like receiving acts of service and gifts
Mhm.
and it doesn't like by gifts, I don't need like an expensive one. I just need to know that you were thinking of me.
Yeah.
So those are like my two. And then I like giving physical touch and quality time.
Mhm.
And then my partner, which works out good, he needs physical touch and quality time as well as
Perfect.
words of affirmation. So those are the ones that I like to do.
I love it.
Gesture wise, I love planning trips and and that's what I'm doing for him when I get back because I'm
Mhm.
missing him on Valentine's Day. But
No,
when I get back, I'm taking him on a trip.
that's so cute.
Yeah,
Um, Speaking of your partner, even though I know, but for anyone who doesn't know, what's your current relationship status?
married. Um, a lot has changed over like the last few years, one thing, for me after I came out, I was like, I'm just gonna date around and like keep it relaxed. And then like within months, I was like, oh, this is it.
Yeah.
Like, how funny is this? I like was seeking a relationship to get engaged, and then like the one time I was like, I don't need it, and
Right.
I'm like married within months.
Of course, that always happens. It's
Yeah,
like that annoying thing that, your married friends tell you, like, when you're not looking, you'll find it.
I've experienced it.
But it's
So
true. It's
yeah,
true.
yeah,
And how did you guys meet? Because like you to the world were newly out, but to
yeah.
yourself, I'm sure it wasn't feeling the same way.
No, we had been dating secretly and privately. I don't want to say secretly, but privately
Mhm.
for a while. After my Netflix wrap party, we were at the same party, and then I just remember being like, "Oh, he's cute, and what's his deal?" And then 2 months later, we're on the same trip to Cape Cod in Provincetown, and we hit it off. And then I was going out for some press for the Netflix stuff and pickups, and I just remember going out of my way to like um, see him as secretly as and privately as I possibly could.
That's really cute. And
Yeah.
so we're into astrology over here on this
Yes.
podcast. You're an Aquarius.
I am an Aquarius.
And he, if I stalked correctly, is a Sag.
Yes, December 3rd.
I love it. Do you feel like a real Aquarius? Because usually it takes Aquarians a long time to settle down. Like, usually I feel like most Aquarius men are like savor their independence very
Mm.
long.
I think what's beautiful and why we worked so well
Yeah.
together is he enabled me and like still even to this day to be independent. Um in the best way. He
Mm-hmm.
does not want to be a part of my like professional world.
Yeah.
He helps behind the scenes and like is so supportive and so great. Um I think it's so healthy. Like coming out of the Bachelor world where it's like all of a sudden, once you leave the show, you're sort of branded as the power couple and you have to move together and everything you do is together or else there's like
So
a
true.
rumor of a split.
Oh, yeah.
Like Jordan and I don't walk carpets together.
Right.
We will take photos together at events, but like we don't want to like throw it in anybody's faces. We like to be private.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why it worked. But then also, I mean, I put in a lot of whether the show taught me a lot about what I wanted out of a partner, and I still got to apply that just to a man, not a woman.
Right.
So I put in a lot of work of figuring out what I wanted out of a partner.
That's a really good way of looking at it. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't a waste of time. You still learned, like, all dating experiences in general
Yeah.
are a lesson.
Yeah. The Bachelor world really taught me how to date with intent.
Mhm.
And I took a lot from that show. Like I really there is definitely a lot of positives that came from it, just as far as like how it shaped me and
Yeah.
and the way that I dated and asked questions.
Do you still watch, like,
I
other
don't.
seasons? Yeah.
No, and like I think, my like we've moved on and we've healed our relationships, and they were kind and invited me to Jerry's wedding, but I had another obligation that I had to go to that weekend. But I think they're doing really well with the Golden Bachelor. I haven't followed, but I obviously saw the success, and I thought it was so cool and innovative, and it was what the franchise needed.
Totally. No,
Um,
really smart. I mean, now watching, because I am like a new Bachelor watcher, and now watching Joey's season, I'm like, oh
yeah,
my God, this is awful and like so catty and just like
yeah,
these people are crazy. Like I miss my ladies, like my
yeah.
my golden
Right.
ladies.
Well, I saw they announced the Golden Bachelorette, correct?
Yeah, but did
So
they say who it was?
no, no, no. I
Okay.
just know that
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
it
it's
worked for
coming.
them.
It's
I
coming.
mean, you knew that was coming. I don't think
Of
that
course.
shocked
Of
anybody.
course. Yeah.
Um, but no, I don't watch, but I obviously have social media and pay attention to the media. So like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see how things are going.
For sure. Going back to your relationship with Jordan,
Yeah.
because you had like newly come out, was there any hesitancy on his end to be like, Colton, like, what if you still have so much to get out of your system? And like, I am just like, the stepping stone, or maybe there's like a term for that, like the first person you like
Yeah.
really like date after you come out.
Yeah. No, I mean, he would be the first to admit that it was scary for him.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of his friends were sort of, whether privately saying it or to him at times too, being like, what are you doing? Like, he's not like he just came out. Like he's about to break your heart.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to like reassure him and just be like, this is it. Like I'm not a grass is greener type person. That was not the attitude that I took. Like him and his family and just like his values and who he is as a human being was so attractive to me. And just like I don't know, it just was like one of those things like we fit together and we're made for each other.
Mm-hmm. And in your story and like your background as a person, you grew up Catholic.
Yeah.
Where does religion play a role, if at all, in your life or your relationship like today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still very much on my faith journey.
Mhm.
I consider myself a Christian man, and my relationship with God is between God and I, and not in a building or confined to religion like I used to approach it, where it was very structured and organized, and I had Bible studies here, and I had to read this. Like, I very much am in a different state of mind, but one that I consider healthier, and my faith is important to me.
Yeah.
Jordan knows that, and a lot of people who have been with me along this journey have sort of seen and I've sort of spoke to about this. So yeah, it's a work in progress, but it's definitely in a healthy spot.
Yeah. What advice do you have for others who are coming out in like religious communities? Because this is a problem that doesn't seem to be going away as like modern as we are, as much as people are like, you don't even have to come out today. There are still so many, especially religious communities where, or even just like family dynamics where you still feel like you can't. So do you have any advice for anyone listening that might be in that spot?
I mean, I think just find your support system and find the people who you can trust. And coming out is a really slow process, not only with yourself, but just with the people you surround yourself with. Religion's hard. I think, looking back, the three main pillars that sort of held me in the closet was religion, sport, and then my desire to want to be a dad and a family man. I just didn't think was possible as a queer man. So um, I think we still have a lot of work to do in the religious community, but I would just say find people you trust and talk it through with them. Because once you start, that was like once I started explaining to people why I still am a man of faith and like what I believe in, they're like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." And it's just like like it's just sort of like common sense of like
Right.
I don't need to go on Sunday at 11 o'clock, and that's the only time I could speak to God. Like I
Right.
can talk to Him whenever I want to, and I don't only have to talk to Him when I need something.
Right.
So just like completely reframed how I approached my religion.
I love that. I
Yeah,
feel like as someone who's sober, I never really like thought about God or like a higher power until
you were
getting
praying for help.
sober. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But also now I just like look for it in like like if you don't look for it, you're not gonna find it type thing.
Yeah.
But if you're only using a higher power 4 times of help, then that's
Yeah.
like not great either, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So I don't know, it's interesting. It's like that phrase that like everyone becomes religious when they're like on a plane with turbulence.
Yeah. I was like, everybody starts praying to somebody when that
Uh-huh.
plane, yeah,
Uh-huh.
when something does not go well.
Um, Going back to your relationship with Jordan once again, I have had this one of my favorite guests who came on my podcast is Dan Savage. You know him at all or of him?
Yes.
So he's so cool. And so like just ahead, I feel like I learned so much from him.
Yeah.
And he is big on the idea of ethical non-monogamy
Mhm.
and just how it's been great for the gay community, but also for relationships in general. And like I have tons of gay friends and every gay couple in my life has a different view on how monogamous or non-monogamous they want to be. And I think it's so fucking cool. Like
Yeah.
I wish that my straight friends were more open to just like talking about the possibilities,
Right.
right? Do you feel like this is something that you would discuss or have discussed with Jordan, or going back to, being a Christian, do you feel like you draw the line at like, I'm gay already, which some
Yeah.
people might look at as a sin. I'm not going to take it so far as to be non-monogamous.
No, I mean, look, I don't there's not really, like, lines that I draw with religion anymore. It's more
Mhm.
so just, like, my own moral compass and, like,
Right.
my values and what I want out of a relationship.
Mhm.
Um, I have friends and people who I know that are in non-monogamous relationships, and it works for them, and, like, they communicate properly, and it just works. And going back to your initial question of, like, Jordan basically being like, do you still need experiences or is this it?
Right.
Um, it's definitely come up in conversations that we've had. I feel like I would be too jealous of a person to be like, yeah, that's cool. Like I couldn't put myself in that position. And maybe that's gonna change in a year or two.
Right.
That's part of being in a healthy relationship is being able to have tough conversations and reevaluate things at different like moments in your relationship. We're, 3 years in now, so I'm not gonna say anything's gonna change, but just was something that I don't feel like we need right now, and, also just being in the spotlight, it makes it a little harder to have
Right.
non-monogamous relationships because
Mhm.
people talk and rumors get going. I mean, even if you're in the gay community, that's how
Right.
how it works, so, just a choice right now for me and us to protect our privacy that we really just aren't exploring, but
Yeah.
once again, like I think that's what's beautiful. One of the beautiful parts about the queer community is that like the independence and also the approach that they take and we take to relationships with it being less possessive
Right.
and more like I want what's best for you. Do you
Mhm.
need X, Y, and Z? Whereas other relationships come in and be like, you are mine. I'm locking it down. You do not need this,
Don't
and
you
this is why you don't
dare.
need it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's something really cool about that. And I'm not against it, and I'm always up for reevaluation.
I think that's so cool, and I agree with you, 3 years, like, it's still very much honeymoon vibes,
Yeah,
and especially you're going through this journey, which we'll talk about, to start a family, like,
yeah,
that's the focus at the moment.
totally.
I think, 15 years in, who the hell knows, like,
Right.
how anyone's gonna be feeling, and I think that should be more normalized in straight relationships too, like, these
Yeah.
check-ins, like, "Hey, are you feeling like"
Are you getting what you need from me?
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. I think that's such a fair question that we don't ask a lot, and I think we don't ask it because we're, like, scared of the answer.
Right.
Like, because you're scared of your partner being like, "Actually, no, I'm not fulfilled in X, Y, and Z, and I want that."
Right, and the bad thing that could happen if you don't have that conversation is they will step out and you will be so hurt
Yep.
when you could have been like, "You should step out,
Mhm.
and I'm good with it." And, like, then it's just a whole different, reaction to something that you already knew was happening versus something happening behind your back.
Totally. Yeah, I think there's a power in that too, of
So much
power of,
power.
like, empowering your partner.
Totally, it's like if you love someone, let them go, and if they come
Right.
back, like,
Right.
100%. Um, Going back to just like growing up and using kind of sports and athleticism, like being someone who was very much involved in the whole toxic masculinity thing. Um, do you think that that's still very much the case in like sports communities? I know that you are working on this Teams Act, which
Yeah.
we'd love to hear about.
Yeah. I think toxic masculinity gets thrown around a little too loosely and recklessly these days. Like it's sort of like a
It's true.
lazy slap tag that people throw on something that's problematic. And I definitely think, I've been guilty of certain moments of masculinity problems, including on my fertility journey, which we'll get into. But
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, I think sports culture has a long ways to go. It's gotten a little bit better, but it's still really far behind as far as everything else. I think this new generation is doing really, really well at basically being annoyed with the question of like, what's your sexuality? They're like, I mean, one week I like him or one week I like her. Like, what do you mean? Like, they're so bored with like, are you straight or gay? And they're like, I don't know, I'm bi. Like, I'll figure it
Right.
out later. And I think that's
Right.
so healthy. I would have loved to not label myself until I was ready to like feel those through after puberty. Because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like so often, especially in middle America and growing up in the church is, you're labeled straight from such a young age. And it's
Right.
not really fair to label somebody who hasn't even experienced puberty or like sexual anything yet to like label them as straight.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this new generation's doing a good job at that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And this Teams Act, so it
Yeah.
stands for Targeting Emotional and Mental Stability,
Yeah.
and it's really for student athletes.
Yeah, I've never been much of like an outspoken political person.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, my husband is, he's fundraised and does a lot of work with the Democratic Party, and we've had many differences in our relationship of values and thoughts and political stances and arguments. But
Because your
um,
parents are more on the other side.
my entire family, for the
Yeah.
most part, and just the people I grew up with, like those are middle America, and like those are my people, those are my roots, and
Mhm.
I've learned a lot from them. And I also feel like now I'm in a position to talk with them and explain to them more about like what and why they believe in certain things.
Mhm.
But anyway, I basically said to Jordan when I was on The Bachelor, my foundation was for cystic fibrosis, which is still really important to me. But the secondary secondary illness to cystic fibrosis, which is a terminal illness, is depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's something that was a little bit more true and authentic to my story too. So I made the decision to pivot from CF to mental health. And I asked my husband, I was like, what can I do to have the most impact on people? He's like, you should pass a piece of legislation that protects college athletes.
Mhm.
And like now I have a bill that's introduced in both the House and the Senate with bipartisan support, which is rare these days, um, to grant money for universities to use only for mental health resources. So I'm so proud of the Teams Act. My foundation has endorsed it with Senator Cory Booker, Senator Bozeman, the NCAA, NAMI, um, all of these American Psychology Association, all these incredible organizations have endorsed our bill, and I'm so proud of that.
That's so awesome. You should be proud of
I
that.
know. It's like real change. A lot of people have these foundations where they like donate money here, donate doing this. And we have the ability now to really like make a difference.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. What would like what was helping you when you were dealing with your mental health issues? Did you see a therapist? Did you like medicate? What was like the greatest help at the time?
Um After like reflecting on it now, I wasn't getting the right help
Mhm.
when I was struggling. I mean, that played out very publicly and it was very bad for not only me, but like my circle and my friends
Mhm.
and my family.
Yeah.
Um so I wasn't getting help. And then the medication for me, I was on it for quite some time. I was on Lexapro
Okay.
while my season aired,
Yeah.
just because I didn't really know how to deal with the public and the scrutiny, and you can't make any decision that like every fan likes on that show. So like
Right.
you're dealing with it some way somehow. And then I started taking Xanax for like sleeping aids and to
Mhm.
help shut my brain off, which just sort of became once again just a massive band-aid, and I
Right.
was taking it too much and abusing it. Um, So I definitely now, for me at least, I can speak and I think medication is for temporary and for a game plan to put together to use to get you through, your recovery plan.
Right.
But I did during COVID and before I even filmed the Netflix show, as I was coming out to myself, I saw both a therapist and a psychologist 3 times a week for about 2 months.
That's amazing.
Pretty intensive. And just got the help that I needed. I
Yeah.
surrendered my medication. I remember to my family. I moved back to Colorado, moved back in with them, got the help that I needed, and then started moving on with my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I remember at one point I was seeing a therapist twice a week and it was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was very, yeah. I mean, it was sort of just with how everything happened with my story for whatever reason. I had to come out to my professional team before I
Mhm.
could come out to my family, just with like media and legal, and I was getting like blackmailed, so it was like there was just like this part that I had to deal with like backwards a little bit.
Yeah.
That was a struggle for me, but having a therapist and being able to talk it through with them, because like normally you have your support system and your friends and your family that you could really lean on, and that wasn't the case for me. So having a therapist and a psychologist to help me with like withdrawing from the medicine use and re-examining that was so helpful.
Yeah. That's so helpful.
Yeah.
I have one last question, and then I want to talk about your fertility journey.
Yeah.
What are 3 things that you wish you had known kind of before becoming a household name? Like if someone found the Colton before people knew,
Yeah.
before you were the first Colton that comes up when people Google you, like what would you have said to that person?
Mm. I think I would have just explained to him that he's like, you're in your mid 20s and you're still very much figuring yourself out. And also, like, socially, I was really immature.
Yeah.
I didn't have a social life like a lot of other people did. Like, my
Hmm.
college experience was very much football and academics to like play in the NFL. That was
Right.
like my goal and my dream. And I just like I didn't date. I didn't have like the stupid, like, the silly shit you do when you're in high school. Like I didn't have that because I was so focused on sports. So I would just remind myself to be a little bit more patient and that you're behind a little bit. And then two, just you can't. I was trying to make everybody else happy at the expense of my happiness. So I would definitely just remind myself to be a little more conscious of what served me
Right.
and what made me feel good
Hmm.
instead of trying to please people when
Yeah.
I was on that show.
Yeah. You got to put your seatbelt on for certain
Yeah.
cases.
And then I think the third one would just be like, buckle up, get
Hmm.
ready for this because there's no putting the genie back in this bottle. Like once it comes out, it's
Right.
out. As much, even as, as much as even I pulled back over the last 2 years of removing myself from like media and not engaging with tabloids and podcasts and stuff like that. There's still moments where I feel a little overwhelmed. And when
Hmm.
like paparazzi or like Jordan and I's breaking news on our relationship with somebody took like a sneaky iPhone pic of us on a beach in Hawaii, it's like, you know, you can't control that. So
Right.
I can't let that worry me too much.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you stop yourself from like Googling like and things like that when
I'm to a point now where like, I mean, look, I've truly been called everything. I have people who love me. I have people who hate me. I have people who know me pretty well. And I have people who don't know me at all that like
right.
have their opinions. And I just try to stay neutral. My motto is my college coach told me this when I was playing football. My motto is very much like, you can never be too high and you can never be too low. So just like, even when I get some of the best news in the world, it's like, yeah, but what's next? And like
Right.
trying to
Right.
keep that even keel. Like, of course, I can celebrate little wins here and there, but I just want to like
Right.
stay pretty even.
I love that.
Yeah.
You can never be too high and you can never be too low. I'm going to take that with me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your new podcast, Daddyhood.
Daddyhood.
So, what made
We're
you
here.
realize how necessary it was to talk about the fertility journey for like a gay couple? Because I feel like I have so many friends going through it, and I don't know any podcast talking about it.
Well, I mean, the reason why I wanted to do it is because I had no help. My agent at CA was the one who helped me assemble my entire fertility team
Mm.
because nobody really talks about this.
Yeah.
And like even Google is tough, and then it's overwhelming, and you sort of shut down. And um, I mean, I'm grateful and fortunate and even privileged to say this, but like I have like 9 people on my team helping me hopefully have a baby this year, and that's a lot of people and a lot of
Yeah.
moving pieces, and it's really expensive, and it's hard, and there's a lot of shame around it, and nobody's there to help guide you. So I sort of, when I first started this fertility journey with my husband, I was like, how cool would this be to like let people in? And then I remember like the first hurdle we got to, which was me testing my sperm, and the doctor basically being like, you don't have any sperm. Like, I was like, oh, I can't do this podcast. Like, how am I going to explain? Like, it was like one of those things I carried so much shame, and like my ego took a hit. And I was like, you're telling me like I'm a healthy individual, I don't have sperm? And so I was like, I called my team and I was like, never mind, not doing Daddyhood. And then a couple weeks go by, and we started put a game plan together. And I was like, you know what? This is why we need this show.
Right.
Like, this is the conversations we should be having, because
Mhm.
I was naive enough to say fertility issues are for women. Like that, I mean, that's how the majority of our country thinks, because that's all we hear about. And that's the only people who talk about fertility struggles, and men don't talk about it too much. So I was like, why not me to start the conversation? Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about why I don't have any sperm and what I'm going to do to try to improve my numbers.
Yeah.
So
Without revealing too much, like, do you have a plan now for what you can do? And if not, like, would it just be from your husband that you would create this
yeah,
baby?
I go through this all in length on some of the episodes in Daddyhood
Mhm.
later on, but we put together a plan, and in 6 months I basically went through sperm rehabilitation
Whoa,
and
I didn't know that was a thing.
made some big lifestyle changes, and
Mhm.
bounced back and had great results and numbers, and to a place where I was able to freeze my sperm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to hear all about it.
I know, and it's just like nobody, but like even then, you're meeting with doctors and you're dealing with legal paperwork, and it's very clinical.
Yeah.
Whereas like someone sits there and tells you basically like, "Oh, you can't have kids right now,"
Right.
and you're like, "All right, on to the next." And I was like, "Whoa, is somebody gonna hold my hand and like
Yeah.
walk me through this?" And
Right.
it's not. That's not the case.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy. And like, I can relate to you kind of thinking that you would have no issue once you started. I thought I would have no issue because of like weird myths. Like, I had big hips, or so I was like, oh, I will be fine. Like, I'm going to get pregnant in 2 seconds,
Yeah,
a year and a half later of IVF. And I have never had more friends going through IVF than I do now. It's more, I would say, like, 8 out of 10 friends of mine who are trying to get pregnant are going through IVF for one reason or another, and some of it is the man situation, whether it's like a gene that a man
yeah,
has, or it's not necessarily, there hasn't been a sperm, like a low sperm count situation, but there's been like a sperm not meshing with the egg,
yeah.
like, which you
Sperm
can't even,
motility,
yeah.
I'm by no means a sperm expert, but
Yeah.
like what I've learned so far is wild. Like we are in a fertility crisis right now as a country.
100%, but why do you think it is? Because that is so interesting to me, and I'm sure you have a fertility expert coming on to explain, but, like,
Yeah.
what is it, what we're eating? Like, what is
It's a
it?
mix of eating, it's a mix of lifestyle, it's a mix, I mean, all the way down to carrying your cell phone in your front pocket.
Yeah, is it
There's
the
so
plastics,
many
the foils, like, what?
there's so many different things. Right now, we are trending at a decrease in sperm count by 2% every year,
What?
which like is wild. Like there is, in a way, when you look at this, like we are in the process of going extinct, and nobody's talking about it.
But it's like, what's the answer to that? Is that freezing your sperm when you're, like, 20? Is that freezing your eggs when you're, like, 18?
Yeah, I mean that, and in lifestyle choices and change. Being able to recognize that certain foods aren't healthy for you, certain lifestyle choices, certain medications, there's
Mhm.
alternative ways that you can go about it. Like exercising more than 5 times a week actually can have some side effects that are not good.
Right.
Um, so there's so many different things that go into it, and I do have a fertility and a sperm expert that comes on and talks us all through, what we can do.
Right.
Um, and it was super helpful to sit down with them. But
That's
I
great,
would have
yeah.
never known that if I
Right.
didn't start Daddyhood.
I mean, it's also so expensive. You mentioned, like,
Yeah.
before, it's insanely expensive. I have a friend who, like him and his fiance, they've been engaged forever, but they're not planning to get married because they have to spend that money on
Yeah.
the baby. It's like what, 200,000 a kid or something minimum, probably.
Yeah.
It's wild. And then there's rules that like are unspoken that I didn't know, which is that for a gay couple, if you have, let's say, one kid with your sperm and the other kid with your husband's sperm, you're not allowed to ask which kid has which. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, I think that's more of a preference
Okay, yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
That's yeah,
But
because
it's like,
it is
but
a
it's
little bit like
mm-hmm.
I will say from doing Daddyhood and talking through, like I approach the conversation about when are you having kids so much different because it's
Oh,
such an
so different.
invasive question
Mm-hmm.
that we as a society has become such a normal practice.
Totally.
Whereas like now, when people would ask us that, and it just was such a blow every time because they'd be like, "When are you having kids?" And I'm like, what is my answer supposed to be? When I have sperm?
Right,
Like
right,
it's such a
exactly.
like I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. So like I always
Uh-huh.
played it off. And for the first time I got to experience half of what a woman experiences when they
Right.
get pressured to have to answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
So it helped me evaluate that a little bit. But um yeah, I think that's more of a preference thing.
Yeah.
And like for us, we always just want a healthy kid.
Yeah.
That's so like the healthiest embryo is what we're gonna plan on. And look, I'm sure you're gonna be able to tell by
Yeah,
physical
right.
attributes. Like
That's
it's
the
not
thing at the
you
end
don't
of the
have to
day.
be a detective to
Uh-huh.
figure it out. So like figure it
Right.
out.
But there is so much trust involved in a surrogacy process. I mean,
Yeah.
you are trusting this woman who you probably don't know. Maybe there's a surrogate, maybe there's like oh wait, a surrogate and there's an egg,
Egg
right? And
donor.
and
So
they're
egg donor and
separate
surrogate are
usually.
different people. Yeah.
Right. So that's two women
Yeah.
that you're trusting blindly.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Which I didn't even occur to me until I had my doctor come on the podcast. And, you know, obviously we had to pay and we have our team going, but like he broke it down in such a way that I didn't even think about. He's like, when you have an egg donor, she's my client. Yes, you are my client, but she's my client too.
Right. It's
And then your
business.
surrogate is my client as well.
Mm-hmm.
So now all of a sudden, like I have 3 people who I have to deal with and then funnel all the information back to you. But yeah, it takes a lot of trust
It's
to those
wild.
people.
It's wild. Okay, now we're gonna do some fun rapid fire
Great.
poll questions.
Love it.
All right. Do you have names, by the way, picked out? You don't have to share them, but
Yeah, we have a list in our phone.
Mm-hmm.
We have a fun tradition without spoiling anything in my family. We pass the firstborn, the father's first name becomes a middle name for the
Okay.
firstborn.
Cute.
So yeah, so
Very cute.
we're gonna figure out how it complements our first name selection.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, do you and your partner watch TV together, or does one person watch what they want and the other scrolls on their phone?
Oh no, we have shows,
Mm-hmm.
joint decisions.
Love it. What are you watching right now?
Halo on Paramount Plus.
Oh, I've
We really
heard of
like
it.
that.
Okay.
For All Mankind on Apple.
I
It was
saw
another one
that,
of our
but
shows.
yeah.
And then we just finished
Marvelous
Amazon
Maisel?
Marvelous Maisel.
Love
Sorry.
it.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. You went on one date, really good vibes, didn't kiss. Now traveling for 2 weeks. How much texting is too much texting? Any texting is too much at this stage, a few texts a day, consistent back and forth, or there's no such thing as too much texting if you're into each other.
No such thing as too much texting if you're into each other.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no rules. I think as soon as you get into rules, you're overthinking it.
Interesting because I love my dating rules, but
Oh,
I
you
do
have a
think
structure.
no, well, I think that it's hard to explain in such a short amount of time. Maybe we'll get into it tomorrow, but I think that for women who date men, rules are like structure is a little necessary because straight men are still kind of in the mindset of like, I need to work to get this girl for the most part.
You're not wrong. I mean, we're talking about straight men, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're very simple. So if you follow this thing, then it
They're
works.
cavemen.
Literally.
Yes. Okay, I understand.
Is it normal to feel like you have nothing to text your significant other about besides your whereabouts and plan things? In person is obviously different and normal. Yes or no?
I mean, I love like when he sends a random he'll send random pictures from like memories or like a
Yeah.
funny GIF and put
Yeah.
a smile on my face.
Yeah, I like a little banter.
Yeah.
Would you ask the person behind you to put back their seat on a flight if it's a red eye so that like you can and you won't feel bad about it?
No, I would just do my own thing and I'd keep
Mhm.
to myself when I travel.
Mhm. And you'd hope that like the other people would also put theirs down
Yeah, I
cuz like
just
it's a red eye.
be decent. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
etiquette.
If going to a wedding with your significant other, who pays for the hotel? Oh, you both paid for your own flights. Whoever's friend is getting married, or do you split evenly?
Oh, interesting. I caught a lot of shade on Andy Cohen because he wanted me to get a prenup, but I'm like, once you're married, like money's ours. Like we don't really have like we keep it fair. Like
I'm with you.
it is what it is.
I think prenups are amazing and you should totally have one if you want one. We don't have one, and I have like a similar mindset. Also, you are still protected in the law
Right.
for the most part.
Yeah. Especially once you're
Yeah,
married.
exactly.
Yeah.
Wait, is Andy Cohen gonna come on your podcast? Because he has a cool fertility
We're
thing.
we're working on it. Yeah,
Okay,
he
fingers
just
crossed.
a schedule thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What is the maximum amount of time you'd spend in jail to not have to watch your significant other have sex with another person?
Oh gosh. I mean, I wouldn't want to sleep in jail, so I think I can just like try to find it hot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Spend
I
my
would
time in
be into
jail.
it
I would cheer him
personally.
on.
I would be so
So
into it. Woo, not going to
yeah,
jail.
here you go. Non-monogamy, Dan Savage. Here we go.
Is it a red flag, no big deal, or deal breaker if every time your partner buys you flowers, they're from the grocery store?
No, I mean I live in LA, so like Erewhons are on every corner. So like if
Right.
they're from Erewhon, then not a
And
problem.
by the way, I'm sure Erewhon flowers are like more expensive than regular flowers
For
and
real.
really nice.
Yeah, it's the thought that counts. I know that's like
Mhm.
probably people would roll their eyes, but like I don't like if the flower lasts 2 days versus 2 weeks, I don't care. Like
Yeah, it's
you
the
bought me
thought.
flowers.
I'm with you. But also, like, if you really want to have different flowers, then say it to the guy. Be like,
Communicate.
yeah, be like,
Yeah.
I think it's so sweet that you always think of me to get me
Yes.
flowers. Can they be not from the grocery store? Thank you.
Yeah, Jordan hates succulents, so I never get him succulents.
There you go. It's communication. Would you date your third cousin, same great great grandfather you found out randomly after the first date?
Oh gosh, no. No, that would be a deal breaker.
Yeah, it's too much. It's just too much.
Too close. The family tree is getting all sorts
Mhm.
of
Do you listen to
close.
podcasts on normal speed, 1.25 speed, or like double speed?
1.25 max, but
Yeah.
normal speed.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, cool. This was
Yeah.
so much fun. Can
Thank
you
you.
leave us with a quote or piece of advice?
Oh gosh. I should know this because I ask people on mine too, so I should have came more prepared.
Well, you had the quote from your old
I
coach.
I would definitely say like that would definitely be one, like just to remind people like you can never be too high and you can never be too low, like to try to stay even keel. Like that's like the celebrate your victories and don't sit on your losses too much. But then I think outside of that, it's just like being selfish for your happiness is not problematic. And I think people need to be reminded that like at times making a selfish decisions you should not carry a burden for that.
Yeah,
So.
I like that.
Yeah.
Where can everyone find you, follow you, and listen to Daddyhood when it comes out?
At Colton Underwood on Instagram and at Daddyhood Podcast on Instagram and anywhere podcasts are distributed is where we're going to be.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Thank you. And I can't wait to have you on mine.
Yes, me too. Cool. That was
All right.
awesome.
Tomorrow's going to be so much fun.